In today's video, we're taking a look at all the changes coming in patch 13.13 and how these changes affect our League of Legends tier list this week. This patch is a 3-week long one before the huge events and updates that are coming in patch 13.14, with the Soul Fighter tournament hitting the League of Legends scene, bringing new game modes, champion skins and stories to the game. But before that comes around, let's take a look at the tier list updates in patch 13.13 first. So plenty of buffs and nerfs this patch, mostly to the jungle, and of course hopefully removing the monstrosity that was the AP Shiv mid lane meta, with champions abusing it like LeBlanc. The Trinity Force and Ghost nerfs did get pulled from the patch though, so let's see what Riot have planned for those in the near future. Now we're going to start off with the top lane as always, and in the S tier we have quite a few choices in Akshan, Fiora, Jax, Kayle, Kled, Malphite, Maokai, Olaf, Ornn, Poppy, Rengar and Singed. A couple of the big moves are Kayle jumping up to the S tier and Mundo and Gangplank moving up to the A tier. Yes, Kayle has recently risen back up into the S tier and she really is a force to be reckoned with. Her early game may still be a little bit hit or miss, and if she gets put too far behind she can never quite get going. However, and this is a big however, if she can get to that level 16 power spike with a few items under her belt, all of a sudden she just starts vaporizing teams in seconds. She really is all about scaling, so it takes some efficient farming and laning throughout the early game, and you'll need to be smart and also somewhat greedy to prioritize experience and gold much more than any other champion. But when you do hit that late game power spike, you will quickly understand just how much carrying this champion can do. The sheer AoE splash damage and team fights is like nothing you've ever seen before. So if you are looking for a new champion to learn and to main, go for Kayle. If you want to find out more about Kayle's best builds and runes, then click the first link in the description to head to our champion page. You can literally just click import to client to have her highest win rate builds straight into your own game. Dr. Mundo has been proving much more popular and more consistent recently, and honestly he's so much better than people realise at the moment. Yes, his win rate does tail off towards the higher ranks, but in the majority of ranks, especially silver and gold, he's up there with some of the most consistent top lane picks in the game. Now he has got to be careful about those matchups that can simply tear through him in the early game and farm him on repeat. But if you get out of the lane phase even, you will turn into a monstrous tank capable of sponging a ridiculous amount of damage. So here's a reminder to play Mundo again if you have forgotten about him recently. Speaking of top lane tanks, there really is not many better options than Malphite at the moment. He has just been so good for so long, and it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. He's an excellent pick into a huge variety of top lane matchups, shutting down those attack speed based carry champions like Kayle for example, and other really strong meta picks like Jax and Akshan too. The best thing about Malphite though is that it honestly doesn't even really matter too much about the lane phase, because you can either roam around the map and gank with your ultimate, or just simply sit back, farm, scale and become the formidable engaging machine that you deserve to be in those big late game teamfights. With no nerfs on the horizon, keep abusing the rock while you still can. Over to the jungle now, which is where most of the changes are aimed at this patch, with just way too many overpowered picks in solo queue and also the competitive scene too. Lee Sin and Nidalee are getting buffed, and Ivern, Kindred, Rek'Sai, Vi and Wukong all received nerfs this week. In the S tier this patch we have Evelynn, Fiddlesticks, Jarvan, Kha'Zix, Nidalee, Rek'Sai and Rengar. Nidalee shoots up to S, Ivern and Kindred move down from S to A, Wukong moves from B to C with his nerfs to his E monster damage, and Gragas also moves down to C to join him. Lee Sin and Vi trade places in the B and A tiers. Sometimes all it takes are the smallest changes for Lee Sin to bounce back immediately, and this buff just seems like it could do exactly that, especially so at those higher ranks, which is definitely good news for me, because he's always been one of my favourite champions to play, and you can see here a little bit of footage of my recent games. Lee Sin has always been and will always be one of those picks that is inevitably viable in the right hands, and as long as you can play him well enough, he's a super expressive and really enjoyable champion to make. The buffs this week to his Q damage will help him out against those other strong aggressive skirmishing junglers, and could easily be the difference between a few percentage on his win rate. A lot of the changes to junglers this week are pretty expected. With so many picks being insanely strong recently, it's great to see some love for Lee Sin again, because he's easily one of the most popular picks in the entire League of Legends roster. And now maybe when you get those wannabe auto-filled Lee Sin one tricks on your team, they won't be quite as bad. Nidalee has really been on the hunt recently, climbing steadily into those top tiers. We've had her in the S tier for high elo recently, but now we've put her up there too in this majority player based tier list as well, with the buffs to her base movement speed this week. Nidalee really is all about the early game ganks and snowballing like a Nunu on steroids. She can invade, she can dive, she can poke, and she can burst her way to a 25 stacked up Soul Stealer every single game. And before you know it, she's dealing insane amounts of damage and removing carries from playing the game altogether. Now, Nidalee definitely does take some serious practice to play perfectly, but if you do enjoy her, now's the perfect time to give her another go. Ivern has been a little bit crazy recently, with the full utility build being OP, but also the full AP Turbo Daisy setup slapping in a lot of games as well. He's honestly so effective and pretty low risk too, so when he's been this strong recently, the Rift has been a bit of a scary place. Not only can he carry games by playing all over the map, but even if he does get a bit behind, he can just boost up a specific ally like a Fed AD carry and make them feel simply unstoppable. We have moved Ivern down to the A tier this week with these nerfs, so let's see how much difference they really make. Kindred is another champion that's just been thriving recently, and a lot of this comes down to how strong she is with that bruiser itemization setup based around Trinity Force. This item on ranged users is just a bit too strong, and she can gain so much damage and durability from this item alone once it's completed. The base armor and health reduction this patch should hopefully hit her pretty hard though, making her much more punishable early game and much less obnoxious when she's invading you or contesting those scuttle crab marks early on. Just like Ivern, we've moved her down to A this week in this collective tier list, but we have kept her up there in the S tier for height elo because in the right hands she can just be way too difficult to shut down. Rek'Sai has had the highest win rate in the game across the majority of ranks for the last few weeks. The damage and tankiness her bruiser setup gives her is just unbelievably strong. And if you just play one game against it or play it yourself, you'll quickly realise why she's got one of the highest ban rates in the game too. This week, her base AD and health is being nerfed, and hopefully this should help make her a little bit less overpowered. However, we are going to keep her in the S tier for now because she has just been so damn broken recently, and we can't be sure these nerfs will be enough. Jumping into the mid lane now, and in the S tier we have Akshan, Anivia, Cassiopeia, Fizz, Neeko, Pantheon, Swain and Talon. Vladimir and Zed also move up this week to join them. Silas and Tristana move up to the A tier, Annie falls down from S to A, and LeBlanc and Yasuo move down to the B tier. The static Shiv meta has been a bit disgusting to say the least, with cheesy AP mid picks like Ahri, Kai'Sa, Varus and Ezreal all being very annoying to play against. However, nothing has quite been as obnoxiously broken as LeBlanc. This patch, Riot have nerfed this seriously hard though, reducing the AP ratio on Shiv but also removing the minion AP ratio too. Hopefully this will be enough to prevent this playstyle altogether, as LeBlanc has just been permanently picked or banned every single game since this was discovered. She has been obliterating games by simply deleting the minion wave and roaming permanently. She has so much damage with her abilities plus her auto attacks and a crazy amount of mobility too, which goes hand in hand to charging up that Shiv and making it even more abusable. So let's hope this build dies a pretty serious death. Neeko has been destroying the mid lane too ever since her buff shortly after her rework, and honestly she's just been so damn difficult to beat. You've literally got to count every single minion wave, you've got to respect every single ward, trap and plant you come across, because if you do zone out even for a second, she'll pop out and one-shot you down so quickly with her ultimate. Neeko's had some early game nerfs to her Q this week which won't really affect her as you go into the mid game, but her ultimate did get a change too where it now breaks her disguise. We still think Neeko is going to be a very strong mid lane meta pick to go for though, so she is going to stay in the S tier, but let's hope she's at least a bit more tolerable now. Annie has also been running Riot all year so far and remained a solid and consistently strong pick in the mid lane. She is very simple to play, she's easy to be impactful on and works well into most team comps too, meaning she's just a no-brainer to main if you do want to climb in the mid lane. The thing is, she's maintained a really high win rate all season, so it's about time we did see some nerfs. This patch she's getting her Q base damage and AP ratio reduced, and because of this we moved her down to the A tier this week. Don't worry too much if you do main Annie because she will still be a great pick, but nowhere near as contested and not quite as blind pickable into every single game. Moving down to the bot lane now, and we have some more changes to Essence Reaver, Stormrazor, and then of course the static Shiv nerfs too. In the S tier we have Ashe, Draven, Ezreal, Jhin, Kai'Sa, Karthus and Misfortune. Yes, you heard that correctly. Misfortune is surprisingly good right now, and her win rate is very understated. Across the majority of ranks, she's just coming out on top a lot, with her insane burst damage and her ability to destroy teams with that ultimate. MF is one of those AD carries that you need to partner up with the right support though. She has a lot of matchups that don't really work too well, but if you get the right ones with aggressive CC machine supports, they can combine together to get so far ahead that nobody in the game can deal with them. She may be a little bit more one-dimensional than other top tier AD carries, but when she's seeing results this impressive, it makes sense to start playing her again. Ashe has been on the rise recently since her buffs, and with the bulky Triforce build she's actually been competing with the other S tier AD carries. She has great consistent single target DPS, she can poke and bully lanes early on, and she can kite and dance her way through teamfights, shredding down anybody that tries to stop her. One of the best things about Ashe too is she'll always be useful even when she's weak side and a bit behind in the early game. So sit back, farm up and set up ganks and fights with your ultimate instead. Ashe really does feel like the classic AD carry. She's been in the game since the very start with not too many changes along the way, and she may be simple but she's very enjoyable at the same time. So give her a go again if you haven't played her recently. Kai'Sa bounced back with a passion after her AD growth buffs last patch, and in combination with the AP Shiv build being so strong, she's been incredibly contested in all 3 lanes. Now, even with these nerfs, we still think she's going to remain in the S tier in the bot lane, as now she can actually evolve her basic abilities consistently. She spikes so much earlier and can honestly be super difficult to shut down. Now, whether you build her as a traditional AD carry, a hybrid with Nashor's Tooth, or even mostly AP items, she's back in a great spot, so if you do enjoy her, crack on. Finally, let's have a look at those supports too, and not really too many changes here, aside from some more nerfs to Rel, which are definitely expected as she's just been a bit OP. In the God tier we have Janna, and in the S tier we have Blitzcrank, Nautilus, Rakan, Sona, Soraka and Thresh. Annie and Rel moved down from S to A with their respective nerfs, and Heimerdinger and Bard moved down from A to B. So Rel's rework has been turbulent to say the least. She's been terrible, then she's been overpowered, then even more overpowered, and now this patch she's getting even more nerfs. Riot are intending to nerf her a bit in the support role by hitting her base stats and her W, but they're also buffing Jungle Rel again at the same time, with yet another round of monster damage improvements. It is going to be really interesting to see how hard these support nerfs hit, as she's just been way too strong recently. We moved her down into the A tier this week, but let's just see how much difference this patch makes. Don't forget to check back again next week with our tier list update video to see how Rel and all other affected champions look a week on. Janna remains queen of the supports though, boasting a ridiculous win rate across every single rank, and this has been the case for quite some time. Janna really is the ideal support champion with the perfect peeling, protecting, shielding playstyle that just works so well into so many different games. There are some very strong lanes too with Janna at the moment that she just pairs beautifully with, Draven being one of the best examples. The sheer AD that he gets from Janna's shields is enough to make it OP on its own, but then you add in the shields, the healing and the protection as well, and yeah, it can be a bit brutal. If you haven't already been playing Janna, get on the freelo train before it eventually does get nerfed. Now, in a completely different manner, if you do just want to pop off and solo carry games from the support role yourself, you just need to start maining Blitzcrank. You can genuinely carry by yourself from as early as level 1, with cheesy invades, burning summoners and setting up the map for an easy lead. If you land a few hooks in the bot lane, you can get your AD carry so fed so quickly. Or if they're not that great at the game, just roam around the map and gank other lanes instead, and watch your teammates ride the free wave to an easy win. It doesn't even really matter if you get a bit too far behind on Blitzcrank, because all it takes is one good hook in those clutch moments to turn any game around. So if you are gifted with the hand of God and you can land those Qs often, have fun ranking up faster than you've ever done before. Well, that wraps up today's video all about the changes in patch 13.13 and how they affect our tier list this week. Remember that this video and this tier list is for the collective player base, mainly aimed at the majority of ranks ranging from silver all the way up to low diamond. So if you do want to see more of a high elo selection, then check out our high elo tier list over on our website. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, take care.